Hi, this is Will Tonner from Lampate Audio, sound designer and audio programmer, and today I'm kicking off a new series where I'm looking at redesigning Doom. If you haven't had a look at the showcase video already, let's give you a bit of a peek behind the scenes of weapon design, of some of the demon sounds, just everything really. The way everything's going to be set out is I've got a large Reaper project right in front of me here. Let me zoom out and you'll see actually is pretty extensive in terms of just how many files there are. Like I say, it's a series, right? So we're going to dive in bit by bit rather than try and take it all in one go. But the whole idea is that I've got this Reaper project here where I'm designing all of the individual sounds. I then export them over into Wwise. Although I'm not using Wwise in the actual implementation because I don't have access to the source engine for Doom. It's source engine as much as I'd like to. What we will be doing is using Wwise to put a bit of variation in, use things like random containers or switch containers, and then export back out of that some final audio files, all rendered and all mixed accordingly. And then the third and final step, and how we actually get it synced to the video itself, is a separate Reaper project, and we literally just drag and drop and pretty much just do an audio to picture job on the whole thing. So in this video, I wanted to kick off and do something simple, something pretty iconic as well, and that is the shotgun. So if we zoom in on this track here, SG Fire A, which is the main firing mode for the shotgun. Let's zoom in a little bit on all of this. And you can see lots of folders going on, lots of grouping as well. Let's hear the sound as it currently is. You see I've got three individual assets for that. So one by one. They're all generally the same sort of sound with a little bit of variation in there that will then put even more variation in once we get to Wwise. So what's our sound actually consisting of? Well, first of all, if we look at how the grouping is sorted, we've got everything to do with the shotgun Fire A here. Then the fire itself, the firing action, 'cause you'll see in a second we've also got sounds for the impact as well. And then within fire, we've got blast here. We've got the mechanism as well. So we've got two separate sounds almost within the sound itself. That again is split up into, in the case of blast, three different elements. Let's solo out the blast and you'll hear what element that is. So it's really just the body of the sound itself. And if we go down even further as a level, let's look at the what this main shot file here is. Let's just zoom in a little bit on that. So nice and simple. It's a raw source recording of, I think, a Spaz 12. I don't pretend to know all the details of the individual types of guns that that I use the samples for. It's got quite a sharp tail on it actually. So if we play that again, and actually if I bring it out and extend the whole file, the actual file itself sounds like this. It's got a real tail on it, which actually for how fast-paced Doom is, I didn't really want. We don't want the sound to trail off. You got to think the shotgun's basically the weakest gun in the game, pretty much, bar the pistol. So the idea is that it's probably going to get fired quite a lot. Actually, if we go quickly, and our version, a lot shorter, loads and loads carved out. And one thing that I've learned in sound design is actually it's worth sometimes just carving frequencies out, carving audio out, rather than adding. Sometimes less is more, and I know it's the old adage, but it does prove true. So we've got three of them. Largely the same. Just turning off the edge here. Largely the same. Different source recordings though. And then underneath that we've got what I've labelled explosion. So not realistic, right? We don't have the sound of an anti-tank mine when we fire a shotgun, but this is Doom. So the idea is that on its own, but then layered with the shotgun, gives us a bit of kick. So we've got the shotgun itself, what we identify, as the shotgun, but then just that extra sort of blast, that extra kick that makes it Doom. That anti-tank mine, and you hear it added to the others as well. Suddenly there's a real impact behind that. And then the final thing that we add is this synth kick. And yeah, I mean, it's literally like an 808 kick. That's all it is. If I have a look, you'll see it is synthesized. So it's just I've got hybrid that I'm using it. Here, if you turn that distortion up, actually let's turn it off and open the cut off. That's literally all we've got. It's a triangle wave pretty much. So we hear the synth kick on its own, and then we hear it in context. Let's take it out. Now, it doesn't actually make too much of a difference, but this is the whole idea. It's just an undertone. It's just really to give the shotgun some kick, as well as having that sort of mid and high impact that we've got up here. Let's hear them all together. So that's the sound that we've got for the blast itself. We then, like I said, have the mech. Let's solo this out and hear it. Now, basically, that's two parts of the audio and two parts of the animation. You can imagine you've got the kickback itself, and then you've got the reload. Now, typically in a game, you would probably have the reload itself, which are these tracks here, as a separate asset from the kickback that might be attributed to the firing itself. That's normally so that a programmer can have a Wwise event for the firing of the gun and then the reload. And the idea is that if the animator wants to mess around with, I say the animator, the animation team want to mess around with when the timing works for the shotgun, then they've got two events they can call. You don't have to go back to sound design and go, oh, we've moved the animation out slightly by a second. Can move the audio files around as well? But in this case, I know exactly the time between the gun firing and the reload, and it's this space of time here. So we know fully well that the character animates exactly to those intervals. So what have we got in this case? Let's start soloing them out. So what we've got here is low, okay, and then high pump, right? And then the idea of those two together is, yeah. So just the low pump is the body, the high is the detail, and then the idea is I think they're actually two separate source files. Let's just hear them again. So yeah, and then the high. A little bit of variation you can hear in them, but then together you just get a nice ET reloading sound. And then the ring and the shunt, sort of the Foley really, is probably the best way of describing it. And those individual sounds are like a sort of shing, switch circuit breaker off. Variation in that. And then the shunt, which I think it's an old broken desktop computer that I think I just kicked over. And this sort of fade-in ramp that I've got seems a bit strange, but the idea is that it gives the ring a little bit of leeway. So it gives it a bit of space to breathe. Because actually, you'll see, if I get rid of the fade, you can't really hear the ring. And I quite like that sound, so yeah, giving it a bit of space to breathe before the rest of that sound kicks in. So they're the full mech sound. And let's actually just hear the full sound all together. I'll just zoom out a bit so you can see what's playing. Great, and that is our shotgun fire sound. So using these three assets, you'll see them in Wwise. I've got these three regions within Reaper. And what I'll do, and I'll show you in a second, the region render matrix. Now that really will mess with your head when you see that. Basically, I do blast and mech. So we've got 6, haven't we? We've got 2 here, 2 here, and 2 here. I'm not going to export each of these individual, main shot explosion synth kick. There's no point. I mean, the synth kick is literally the same every time. It's just pointless to export that over and over again. So, yeah, that's the way we've got that set up. So, remember that. We'll come back to this in a second. I'm going to move over onto the hit. Let's hear what that sounds like. Yeah, the idea behind that is obviously that's the sound that we hear when we hit one of the enemies with the shell. I've not grouped this up into loads of separate groups. I think there is so much of overkill that you can do. It's great to have random containers, but actually it comes to a point where do you need X amount? I think after a certain amount of time and a certain amount of random containers, are you actually adding anything to the experience? Probably not. Anyway, let's have a look. So the meat hit. Yep, and then we've got a second meat hit. Bit more meaty, bit more of an impact behind them. Those two. Yep. And then we've got our crunch. It's quite far down to mix that. It's actually a bullet going into ice, quite like the rattling the trail off of it. And then debris, similar to ice. Rock break. And then we've got a ricochet. Yep, and all those together will give us our hit. So what we can do is, again, port those into Wwise, do a bit of pitch variation, and suddenly we could probably turn those 3 into a good distinguishable 6 or 7 or 8. Next is the SG Fire B, which is basically a complicated way of saying the grenade launcher. If you ever you ever played Doom, you know that the shotgun doubles up as this as well. Same sort of thing. Again, SG5B, fire, and then it's split into blast. We have an added pressure as well, and then the mech as well. Let's, again, start with the blast. Now, blast is a lot more muted in this than it is in the shotgun. The reason being that actually the blast isn't the main part of this sound. It's the pressure, which I'll have a look in a sec. So the pre-blast, yeah, a short little kick that leads into the main blast, which is really far down in the mix. But you'll see the reason being is if I go into pressure, let's zoom in a little bit on all this. That's where the real meat of the sound comes from. I quite like this sound actually that I've put together because it's just 2 individual audio files, and I think it's the same one. I know the name's slightly different. All it is, if we look at the list to the listen to the thwomp first. Yeah, it's just a firework. Let me take the effects off. I think there's an EQ and an overdrive on this. If I take that off, it's a completely different sound now. It's really sort of, it's fine. It's just not got much of, it's not got that Doom sound to it, has it? So if we have a look at what I've put on it, got an EQ, cut the high out, boost the bass, boost the mid frequency here, and then stick it for a tube driver, and we get that. Well, technically this, but what we're doing is adding this pre-thwomp here. So the idea is that we get a bit, almost like preverb, a bit of a lead-in going into the to the sound. When you hear it in context, I think it suddenly makes sense. If you get rid of the pre, yeah, it's a nice sound. It gives you, it tells you what's happening. It tells you something's been fired out of pipe. But the pre is just that sort of, just that something extra. So that is the bulk of the sound there. And then we've got the mech, which I think is pretty much a carbon copy of the one from the main shot. Yeah. Yeah, almost entirely. And then the whole sound altogether is this. There we go, and that's our shotgun fires. Now, I'll be really quick with the shotgun hits. They're pretty simple. They are just a hand grenade sound that I've got here. I think it fit the bill in terms of what I wanted. It was a great, I think it's a design sound. I forget what library it's from now, but if I solo it out. So here we are over in Wwise, in the project that we're using, and again, same sort of folder structure going on. We've got player, weapons, and then shotgun. Obviously, all the other lovely weapons we'll look at some point. Shotgun, SG Fire A, and then within Fire A, we've got Fire A Blast, and then we've got the mech random container. But that's I'm keeping that out of Fire A Blast because SG Fire B references it as well. If you remember, you get that sort of reloading sound anyway, regardless of which type of mode you use. So within the random container for the blast, we've got those 3 blast files. And actually, if I play the same one a few times, you notice there is a bit of pitch variation, and that's because we've got that set up on the random container right here. So I've just got 100 cents either way, so it's about basically a semitone either way, which I think is about enough. So if we fire off from the random container itself, we got our individual blast sounds. Same with Fire B. We've got the blast. Remember that being quite far down the mix compared to the pressure. And then they all trigger the mech sound. Brilliant. And then basically it's a very simple event. If we go over to the events screen, you see I've got an event for Fire 8, which basically fires the blast and the mech container. And then we've got one for Fire B, which fires the blast, the pressure, and the mech container. And then Fire 8. And then just quickly, we've done the same with the hits as well. The hit is basically just one random container. So still a little bit of randomization in that, 100 cents either way again. That gives you just about enough variation. Same with hit B. And then, of course, they've got their own audio events as well. And then what I like to do is let me swap the layout over onto the mixer layout. I'm a big fan of the Soundcaster. So what I tend to do is jump over in here, get everything set up, and have each of the individual weapons. So we've got SG Fire A here, and Fire B here, and then I can easily audition that. Start triggering off all the other weapons, and you'll see further on I've got ones for player movement, for the weapon hits. So if I jump to weapon hit, you'll see we've got our SG hit A here, and SG hit B here. And then what I do, I won't go into the detail of it, but I basically can record the outputs of these, and I record them all as individual files, which we then, if I jump back into Reaper now, you'll see makes it easier for us to just drag and drop and sync them against the actual picture itself. But the sole idea of coming into Wwise is that rather than just having 3 files, I can then, with SG hit A, for example. Although it's probably a better example to use one of the weapon fires, maybe something like SG Fire B, because that's got the most elements in it. doing that 10 times gives me 10 variations of that file, and it's Doom, right? So we're going to be firing a lot. So 3 just really won't cut it. It's not enough at all. That's why pitch variation and pitch variations at as lower level as you can do. That is where you'll start to like really increase the mileage of those assets. Anyway, let's jump over into the final part of this, which is into Reaper, where we can sync these over to video. So here we are over in our Reaper timeline project. You can see quite a bit to this as well. We'll go into bits of the detail, especially around the weapon firing. But really, all we're actually doing is dragging and dropping. So I'll show you what I mean. Let's zoom in over here, and specifically up to the weapon fire sounds, and specifically to the shotgun sounds here. Let's play just this bit. So we've got all our shotgun sounds there for Fire A and for Fire B. But let's just solo out our shotgun sounds on their own. It's pretty easy. If you chart these, you can see that basically that's all we're doing is just triggering these off one by one, dragging and dropping them. Yeah. So all we're doing, and if we zoom in on the file names, you can see that for shotgun fire, I basically created 10 variants. Shotgun fire 1, 2, we've got 3, we've got 4. We've got a shotgun fire B there. But all I'm doing is just I'll bring up the doc here. If I go to project directory, you can see I've got all of the individual sounds just down here. Quite a few of them as well, actually. So let me come over here, use the filter SG, and there are my fire sounds. The hit sounds are there as well. If I scroll down out of weapon fire into weapon hit, let's solo the shotguns here. Same sort of thing. So it is just literally a case of dragging and dropping, and we'll come here at the end of all the videos to see how those sounds get inserted. But that's it for now for the shotgun anyway. And what I'll do is revisit the whole idea on a couple of other weapons, and maybe look at things like the I think the next one's probably the chain gun and potentially the hellshot as well. So stay tuned. If this has been of interest, by all means subscribe, like, all those other things that I'm supposed to tell you to do. And any questions, drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. But that's it for now. Thanks.